Hi, and welcome to the video on frequency histograms and polygons. By the end of this video, you should be able to draw a frequency distribution histogram and polygon. So let's take a look at what they look like. On the left here, we have a frequency histogram. It looks a lot like a column graph, except there are no gaps here. And the data that we're collecting is not categorical, it's numerical. So here I'm counting up the number of somethings that I have, and this frequency is how many of them I have. The frequency polygon is similar, except what we do is we put a dot in the middle of each column, and then we join up those dots from the bottom left-hand corner on the horizontal axis all the way to the bottom right-hand corner, and we create a shape, a polygon, and that's why we call it a frequency polygon. Down the bottom here, I have another similar graph, just with both a histogram and polygon on the one axis. So let's see how we're going to draw that. First of all, we need to have some data. Here I have a vertical frequency distribution table. I am counting the number of siblings that people have in their household, and this is how many people have them. So 15 have no brothers and sisters, 20 people have one brother or sister, 13 people have two brothers and sisters, and only 2 people have 3 brothers and sisters. So let's have a look at how we would graph that. Well, on a frequency histogram, which is what we're going to draw first, we need to have a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, we're going to have the number of siblings. That is our independent data, independent variable. The way I remember what the independent variable is that I have chosen the independent variable, and that goes on the horizontal axis. Another way of thinking about it is most times, 99 times out of 100, the independent variable will be the first column of your distribution table. All right, now we want to work out what goes up on our frequency. Now, it's important to have a regular scale. That means that your numbers go up by the same amount. We are going to start at 0, but we want to know where we're going to go up to. That's why we take the biggest frequency from our table. We know we want to go up to 20. If I went up by ones, that would be too little, sorry, too big, and my graph would be at least 20 centimeters tall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up by 5s in this graph. And I know I actually have 5 spaces. Like if I start at 0 and go up by 5s, I do have 5 spaces. This is just going to give me a little bit of headroom at the top of my graph, which is okay if you go one step too much. Next up, I need to label. Very, very important. My horizontal axis is the number of siblings. I can get that from my table, and that my vertical axis is my frequency. That is how many people are actually have that many siblings. The next step is to draw in the title. This title needs to describe the data that you're looking at, and then our columns can go in. Now, the biggest difference between this and a column graph, which is what I said earlier, is that there is no gaps here in between the histogram. There is a half column width gap at the start and at the end, and that's for a polygon when we draw it a little bit later. That is the histogram. Now, if I wanted to draw a polygon, very simply, I'm going to put dots in the middle of each of my columns, and then we're going to join them up like a dot to dot. I start at the bottom left-hand corner and I finish at the bottom right-hand corner of my histogram. And that there is a frequency histogram and polygon. Here are some things that you need to think about when you're creating a frequency histogram and polygon. Is your graph salty? And obviously SALT is going to be our acronym that we're going to look at. The S stands for scale. Does your vertical axis increase by the same amount? Our vertical axis, our scale, was 5s. It was going up by 5s. Your axes is the independent variable on the horizontal axis and is the dependent variable on the vertical axis. The dependent variable will depend on the independent variable. Now, what that means is that if I looked at my previous slide, you would see that I had the number of siblings. That is something that I chose, and the frequency is the variable that I would have to get the information from. I'd have to ask people about how many siblings they had, and they would tell me what their numbers were. So that was something that was completely dependent on my questioning. L is for labels. Labeling, are you both your axes labeled? And T is for title. Does your graph have a title that describes your data? Now, I'm not going to get you to draw up a histogram and polygon. You're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that. What I will get you to do is to pause and summarize this information, because this is like a checklist that you can go through after you've drawn up your graphs. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you get an idea of how to draw a frequency histogram and polygon, and tomorrow you can try some for yourself. Good luck.